Welcome to the debut episode of ECW on FX and the first night of the Thursday Night Wars between ourselves and TNA. Due to the fact that Impact is recorded on a Monday before airing in that Thursday night slot on Spike, I can show you the show that they've put together to go up against us, and as you can see, they have set a pretty high bar with those two matches and that one angle. Joking aside, there's no guarantee looking at that rating that I'll be able to better that because throughout the course of this save, I've put on some pretty bad shows. With that said, I'm quite confident with the show that I've put together that we can start this war with a definite victory in terms of the ratings, hopefully in terms of the television rating, and more importantly, make a great first impression on FX as we debut our new show. And the episode begins with a replay of the final moments of Guilty as Charged 2007, the main event match between CM Punk and Rhino. Without any cuts or interruptions, the final few minutes of the show air in full. We see Allison Danger, the girlfriend of CM Punk, being hit with a piledriver through a table on the outside by Rhino. Back in the ring, Jerry Lynn would make his ECW return, hitting CM Punk with a cradle piledriver before Rhino followed up with the gore that made him the dual ECW World and Television Champions. Joey Styles and Taz then welcome the fans to ECW on FX, saying that those few minutes that were just shown are exactly what we can expect from Extreme Championship Wrestling. It is not for the faint of heart, and it begins right now. The idea of that segment is that we're just giving fans a raw, unedited version of what they can expect from the show, as Rhino and Jerry Lynn, two of the people seen in that footage, make their way down to the ring, the first competitors to make their entrance on FX, with Jerry Lynn cutting a promo putting over the dual world and television champion Rhino. Lynn suggested that the image should be very familiar for anybody who knows their ECW history, as these are the two titles that Rhino never lost in 2001 when ECW closed down. Lynn puts over the fact that Rhino is undefeated and undefeatable, and joked that they may be coming for the Havana Pitbulls tag team titles too. As he said that, CM Punk came down to the ring, but he had nothing to say back, instead going straight after Rhino, the man who took his girlfriend Allison Danger out at Guilty as Charged. She of course is in a terrible way, a severe neck injury suffered to her. The brawl didn't last long, however, as Jerry Lynn took CM Punk down from behind. As Rhino and Jerry Lynn stood over the former world champion, the commentators promoted the huge main event between Jerry Lynn and CM Punk tonight. Rhino and Jerry Lynn not doing well improvising, but it did get the crowd hotter. Unfortunately, a bad performance for Jerry Lynn in his first proper segment, but we set up what I think is going to be an excellent main event. If you've seen the previous series, CM Punk puts in brilliant performances week after week after week, and Jerry Lynn, we're not sure, these veterans have been hit and miss for us, but I'm confident that he's got enough in-ring ability that that's going to be a very good main event, if it's only a solid open with a 55C-. We then go into the opening match of the night, and the commentators fill us in the backstory between the two sides. They were former members of the Hustle, they represented the same group, but within the last 3 months, Loki and Xavier both left the Hustle and beat Hustle members Homicide and Sonny Siaki respectively. Tonight, they face the undefeated duo of Ricky Reyes and Rocky Romero, members of the Hustle and the ECW World Tag Team Champions. The match itself is a really good first match for us on FX. The teams go all out, and I felt that these four guys were perfect to try and put over the in-ring style that we're going for, the hard-hitting, intense style. It's a back and forth match, but Loki and Xavier, rather shockingly, hand the Havana Pitbulls their first defeat in ECW, 10 minutes and 9 seconds, Loki pinning Rocky Romero with the Warrior's Wrath. Individual ratings wise, we see that Rocky Romero and Loki doing really well. Xavier is also getting up to that level. Ricky Reyes, the weak link, that's not to say that he did terribly, but it's not a great performance. It is a very, very good match rating that could easily have main evented for us. the first match of ECW on FX, Loki and Xavier picking up the win. The commentators putting over the momentum that is building for the two of them, who come off victories at Guilty as Charged by ending the undefeated run of the Havana Pitbulls at 7 months and their 10th match in ECW. Perhaps they're in line for a tag team title shot. The Hustle leader is not at the building tonight, with Homicide still recovering from the brutal finish to his match with Loki at the pay-per-view. The muscle of the Hustle, Sonny Siaki, is also yet to arrive. Cutting to the back, CM Punk is shown preparing for his match with Jerry Lynn in the main event, where he is joined by Tommy Dreamer. Both men look a little bit down, both coming off defeats at the pay-per-view, but Tommy shows his support for CM Punk. He says that despite the result of Guilty as Charged, he still sees CM Punk as the future of ECW. Tommy Dreamer says that his future, however, following his defeat to Raven at the same event, is less clear. CM Punk has a gimmick that is getting stale, while Tommy Dreamer improvised well. It's another decent segment, maybe something to look into, CM Punk changing his gimmick for the new show, but it's a C rating, another good segment that's going to help us towards the final rating. We then get a equally good segment, a pre-recorded vignette introducing viewers to the group known as the Extreme Horsemen. C.W. Anderson, Paul Burchill and Stevie Richards stand by as Steve Corino delivers a sermonic rant about what happened at Guilty as Charged, referencing the fact that they lost to those punks from the New Heart Foundation. That was one thing, but what happened to his sister Allison Danger was disgusting. Corino surprisingly absolves Rhino of any responsibility, blaming his sister for coming out and getting involved. She shouldn't have come between a man and his championships. CM Punk also holds responsibility for what happened to Allison. She was driven through a table, and Steve Corino is going to make CM Punk pay for that. So it could have been better, as we see that Steve Corino struggle when going off script, but tonight is just about introducing those characters. We're introducing the dynamic between CM Punk and Rhino and Jerry Lynn early on. We're introducing something between Dreamer and Punk, that Dreamer is a bit of a gatekeeper for the company, and Steve Corino and his sister Allison Danger is established in this segment. So that's what this show is all about, putting over the characters to potential new viewers. We then get the second match of the night, Teddy Hart making his singles debut in ECW against Johnny Swinger, who is basically used as a jobber in this match, although he is joined by Angel Williams. That gives him something, but a good performance, a 55 from Teddy Hart. We see a 36 from Johnny Swinger. These young guys, no improvements, but unfortunately we had to book this as, I think, a mayhem match, which, considering it was only 2 minutes, basically we can say that just means Teddy Hart flying all around the place. The reason I have to do that is because the product dictates that we have to have a wild brawl, a car crash, or a mayhem match. I didn't want the opener or the main event to be that, so we had to put it here. It's probably hurt the rating a little bit, but Teddy Hart's done well, so that's the most important thing. TJ Wilson and Harry Smith, his fellow New Heart Foundation members, join him in the ring after a decisive victory in his first singles match in ECW, a new star that we're putting over in the company. The commentators put over the three youngsters in the ring, talking about how good they are now, making their matches unmissable. Just imagine how much better these guys are going to be in 1, 2, 3, 5 years. You cannot miss ECW on FX because these young talents are going to flourish and become the best in the world. Next week, you get another chance to see that as C.W. Anderson and Stevie Richards face TJ Wilson and Harry Smith in tag team action. We then get a segment backstage, which is the best segment on the night so far, and it is between two masters of the microphone, so there's no surprise there. In the office of Paul Heyman, who is talking to Jade, he is approached by William Regal, who hands him a disc. Regal tells Paul to air it on next week's show and adds that there is footage on there of some of the talent he's bringing to ECW with him, and Paul Heyman can thank him later. Heyman is confused as to why Regal thinks he can dictate what airs on his show and who is signed to the company, things like that, but Regal then hands him a piece of paper. Regal hopes that it explains everything for Heyman, and if he has any questions, his number is at the bottom of the letter. Regal not referring to himself, but the person who has written this letter. Paul Heyman looks over what has been written and begrudgingly accepts the disc from William Regal. Whatever's going on there, there's a tease that there is some outside influence. I'm not going to go into any authority figure power struggle storyline, so don't worry about that. But Regal is here, and he obviously has some inside track and some influence over what happens on the new show. Into that main event, it's a very good rating. TNA have got no chance this week because that is a type of match that blows Jeff Jarrett v Petey Williams out of the water. I don't know what they were thinking with that. Jerry Lynn doesn't really do too well. He was off his game in his ECW return, which is disappointing, but the match gets the crowd buzzing. No comment on the reaction, but Jerry Lynn defeats CM Punk. We put over that Punk is still hurting. He has had serious rib injuries. There was talk that he wasn't going to be able to compete in this match at all tonight, but he fought through. Unfortunately, he was unable to pick up the victory. Instead of Alice in Danger, Punk was joined by Tommy Dreamer for the match, but the scruffy hooded man who we saw at Guilty as Charged distracted Dreamer, and that ended in a brawl with him heading up the back. Rhino was at ringside but didn't really have to get involved. Jerry Lynn doing a number on CM Punk. It's an upset victory. It's another defeat for CM Punk, but I thought if we were going to give Punk another defeat, now was the time, and it gives Jerry Lynn a very impressive win in his new ECW debut, that is. After the match, Rhino joins Jerry Lynn in the ring, and it appears they are not done with CM Punk. Rhino directs Jerry Lynn to scoop him up from the mat, setting up in the corner. We all know what he's going to hit. That brutal gore, which has been the Achilles heel, the thorn in the side of CM Punk for months and months and months. The commentators put over that fact, and during this rivalry, Punk has struggled to deal with Rhino. He's got serious issues with his ribs, which we saw during the course of the match. Before Rhino could hit the move, however, the lights in the building went completely down. Once the darkness was lifted, Rob Van Dam was in the middle of the ring, the biggest star of the company, not seen since he was taken out at November to Remember. RVD goes face to face with the man who holds the ECW World title, just like Rhino's complaints have been all these months. RVD never lost that title. RVD dodges an attack from Rhino, taking him down with his well-known educated feet. RVD then drops Jerry Lynn, looking to go to the top rope and hit a 5-star frog splash. Rhino, who has rolled to the outside, however, grabs Lynn by the leg, pulling him out of the ring. They back up the ramp as RVD stands tall, his return on the very first episode of ECW on FX. A big way to end the show, an excellent show that gets a 68C+, one of the better shows that I've ever booked in this save. A brilliant way to kick off the Thursday Night Wars for us. We've established some of the new members of the roster: Teddy Hart, TJ Wilson, Harry Smith and Jerry Lynn. Some of those guys who we want to build around. Loki and Xavier picking up a monumental victory over the previously undefeated Havana Pitbulls, and that excellent main event. Really happy with that show overall, and we'll now see how we've done against TNA in terms of the ratings. So the TV ratings are in, and Impact draws 1.235 million viewers, a 1.64 on the rating scale. That takes into account every region in the game that they air in, which does give ECW an unfair advantage. I'm not sure if you can just isolate Spike v FX or anything like that, or probably our North American coverage against their North American coverage. We draw a 2.11. That is a considerable victory for us. I don't know, maybe in future weeks if I can compare just FX and Spike and make it a more even battle, but any which way you look at it in terms of attendance, show rating and TV rating, week 1 has to go down for a victory for ECW on FX. I'm not surprised considering the terrible show that they put out, if we're completely honest. Jerry Lynn v CM Punk, a very strong main event, a very good show overall, and I'm looking forward to continuing to win this war as we go further and further into 2007.